We have a wonderful picture of Jesus at his best, in a way, and humanity at its best, its truest. Bartimaeus is called a blind man, and he is sitting in his usual place by the side of the road, and he hears that Jesus is passing by, and he says, "Hey, Jesus, have pity on me." And Jesus says a real important thing. He says, "Call him here." And then he says to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" We pray with that. God's desire, do you know your truth enough to call on me to be your God? So it's a call, and of course Bartimaeus says, "Oh, of course I want to be able to see." And Jesus says, "Receive your sight. Your faith has healed you." And the man got up and followed Jesus. Oh, a very beautiful story, isn't it? Well, watch what's really going on here. It's very interesting. Why did he take off his cloak? That's very important. Is it a symbol that he's taking off his identity as the man who is blind? Or was he a blind man? Big difference. And Jesus then meets the truth that Bartimaeus presents. "I am blind and I would like to see." Jesus says, "I want to do for you what's good for you. Do you know what's good for you?" The man says, "Sure. I'll be better if I can see." So it's a nice story. But let's talk about the cloak and the roadside. Because Jesus, might not like this, but Jesus is an inconvenience. Calls us out of our conveniences. And so Bartimaeus is comfortable on the side of the road. It's his usual place. And it's his usual cloak. It's a beggar's cloak. And he's letting go. Jesus is calling him not just out of blindness, but out of the convenient, out of the usual, out of the condition of blindness. To be something and someone different. One thing now that I'd like to share with you, the call of God is always to leave the comfortable, the traditional, the usual. So all the calls were from this place to that place. So the cloak is Bartimaeus' identity as a man, but a blind man. And he takes it off, and he drops it, and he gets up off the curb, never to return, and never to wear that cloak again, because he's going to follow Jesus. And he says, "I want to see again. I will give you sight so that you can leave what we call your home. We can leave the comfortable, the usual, to the unfamiliar." In his book, Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis, in the very first letter, if you haven't read it, it's a book about an uncle devil writing to his nephew about how to trap this particular client, they call it. But he says, number one thing, keep impressing upon them, the Uncle Devil says, keep impressing upon them the necessity of the familiar. Well, we love the familiar and the comfortable and the convenient. The cloak and sitting on the curb. Bartimaeus had been there for so long, it was actually his name and his position, his home. And the call of God is always to the unfamiliar, it seems. I will give you a new way of looking at life. If you want the sight, do you want sight from Jesus or sight for yourself? The sight that Jesus gives is now, Bartimaeus, who has lived totally for himself, begging, even from Jesus, Lord, that I may see. Jesus says, if I give you the gift of sight, you will see my way. You will follow me. And what you will be doing is leaving your home to make a home with my brothers and sisters. That I will ask you to not be so comfortable with the familiar, but to be open to the possibilities of your extending me to others so that you will go around and say, now, I want to be for you. What can I do for you? What do you, maybe you can't say it, but what do I know I can be good to give to you? What do I know about you? So it's again and again that Jesus calls us to be agents or extensions of his creative love. So that Bartimaeus leaves his false identity now. It was a kind of identity. He was a blind man. Now he's not a blind man. He's a man who is ordained, in a sense, by the call of Jesus to continue Jesus' creation of others. Leaving home then, whatever the home is, Bartimaeus, it was on the curb. Leaving home is taking off our former shoes. Remember, Moses had to take off his shoes. We have to shake off former identities that can blind us. I'm only that. Jesus, once we meet Jesus, he says, I'm going to call you from the familiar to the unfamiliar, where I can use you to continue God's creation of others. What a great way to live. Not for ourselves. Not defining ourselves by my name for myself. Bartimaeus, who are you? I'm a blind man. No, he was no longer a blind man. He was a man who could see what he could do for others. Well, in our prayer and receiving the Eucharist, we are asked to let go of any false definitions of ourselves. Throw off the cloak. Change our shoes. Leave the home of the easy and the selfish. And follow Jesus along his way to where can I respond by saying, what can I do for you? What gift can you give me of your truth that I can help God be gracious to you? That's called mission. That's called living the Eucharist. So we ask always, Lord, that I may see who I am in your eyes, not who I am in my eyes. In a sense, we are blind to who we are. And Jesus gives us that sight of who we are. And if we can see who we are and receive it, we will follow him in his creation of others.